Ayotte.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank you and thank Chairman Murray for your leadership and everyone at the table who is coming here, I think, in a spirit of good faith so that we can resolve this for the nation. And I represent Granite Staters, and I can tell you that they're not happy when you think about where we are. We reached a milestone that none of us are proud of recently with $17 trillion of debt for our nation. I'm blessed to be the mother of two children, a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old. And it's not just words when we think about what is it that we are passing on to the next generation. If those of us who are in a position around this table to address the fiscal challenges facing our nation kick the can down the road again and don't get things done to address those challenges. I like to say that the debt is really a function of both parties, because it is. It took Democrats and Republicans to get us in $17 trillion of debt. We added $4.9 trillion to the debt during President Bush's 8 years in office. Since the President Obama has been in office, we've added $6.4 trillion to the debt. So the truth is, it is going to take two parties to get us out of this mess, and the American people expect us to work together to do it. So what are the big challenges that we face? I think my colleague Senator Graham talked about them. One of them is Medicare is going bankrupt in 2026. Social Security goes bankrupt in 2033. The mandatory spending piece of what we spend our dollars on is 2/3 of federal spending. CBO's long-term outlook in the next 25 years, it looks worse for our nation, not better. And in fact, those important programs that I just talked about, the mandatory spending entitlement programs, they're going to squeeze out the discretionary priorities that we also care about: defense, infrastructure, and education. So if we don't take on those larger challenges, then the people who are relying on those programs, we are not doing a service to them, because they are important for our nation, and they are important to, I know, many of my constituents and others who are relying on them for a secure retirement and future. So my hope is that we can lay a foundation for a larger fiscal agreement for the country, as my colleague Senator Crapo talked about. Because if we don't get at these underlying fiscal challenges, then we're going to continue to be where we are today. The one thing I do hope we can agree on is let's not kick the can down the road again. Since fiscal year 2011, we've had 16 continuing resolutions. Think about it. Short-term funding pieces. Anyone who interacts with the government has no certainty in the private sector in terms of what we're going to do next. No one would run a business this way. No one would run a family this way. And I hope that at a minimum, around this table, we can agree to fund the government through the end of the fiscal year and commit to ourselves that there won't be any more government shutdowns. I commend my colleague, Senator Portman, for his End Government Shutdowns Act. I'm also a co-sponsor of that. But shame on us if we don't at least come up with a funding measure till the end of this fiscal year and end this government by crisis, because my constituents are tired of it. I'm sure everyone around this table hears the same thing from their constituents. Finally, if you look at the Budget Control Act, I didn't vote for the Budget Control Act. The reason for that was because it didn't deal with the underlying long-term drivers of our debt. And I hope that we do get at that larger fiscal agreement for the country. That said, with $17 trillion in debt, the savings that we are realizing from the Budget Control Act should not be ignored, should not be blown off. Are there smarter ways that we can address spending? Absolutely, because the Budget Control Act takes all those savings out of about 1/3 of federal spending, instead of looking at the big picture and the big challenges that we face. I had the chance to meet with General Odierno this morning. I serve on the Armed Services Committee, the Chief of Staff of the Army. We only have 2 brigades that are prepared for combat right now. So the impacts that we are having by only taking 1/3 and cutting from that 1/3 and not looking at the big picture is something that we should care about in this committee. And I'm hoping that we can come to some ways to do this in a smarter fashion. Number one, through dealing through waste, fraud, and abuse. How many GAO reports have we all seen around this table on duplicative programs that have never been addressed? Let's address them finally. And in addition to that, the president proposed some spending reductions from mandatory savings. Let's see if we can work together to do this in a much smarter way, make sure that our nation can be defended, and also, finally, let's not kick the can down the road. I said it a third time, but let's show the American people we can get something done on their behalf, and that we end government by crisis, that we get out of our trenches on both sides of the aisle and get this done for the American people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.